Then joining us now is Richard Cross, the host of Sports Talk Mississippi. What's going on there, Richard? You look like you're in a hotel room.
I am. They all look the same, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if they're nice or they're not nice. They all kind of look the same in the background if you travel, which I'm fortunate to do some. You know, it's just another room in another city. But good to be in Houston. I largely was able to avoid the travel issues that plagued so much of the country yesterday. Couple of delays, but got in late last night and excited about the Texas Bowl tonight with Ole Miss and Texas Tech.
Yeah, and I see you wearing your Masters pullover as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I see the familiar
we'll
Masters logo.
Right.
exactly.
April will get here before we know it.
Can't wait for it. All right, so we got the big game coming up tonight, and that features Texas Tech and Ole Miss in the TaxAct Bowl in Houston. These teams, no strangers to each other, certainly in terms of competing in a bowl game. Totally different era, different teams, different coaches, but they have a bit of a history. I think I've attended all of them in the past, not going to be able to go this year. How do you see the matchup panning out?
You know, it's funny you say that, Gerard. I was looking a second ago at the history. So I did not go to the 1986 Independence Bowl, but I was there in 98. I was there in the 98 Independence Bowl, and I think that was David Cutcliffe's first game as the head coach. You know, he got the job and then came in. He was sick leading up to that game and came in. And if I remember correctly, that's the one where Deuce McAllister returned the onside kick for a nice highlight at the end.
He did. I witnessed it, and everybody's going, who's this guy? Because he was, I believe, a freshman at the time, right, playing on special teams.
Yeah, he was, and 22 turned out to be a pretty good player when it was all said and done, Mr. McAllister. You know, though, it's crazy. So I was going through that, and I realized, okay, I've been to all of the Ole Miss Texas Tech football games other than that game in 1986, including when Ole Miss made the trip to Lubbock. That would have been 2002, I think. I did a high school football game on Friday night in Senatobia. And this falls into the young and stupid category. My friend Brad and I jumped in the car. We left Senatobia at like 10:30 on Friday night, picked up another buddy in Little Rock, drove all night long to go to Lubbock to watch that game. It did not turn out well. It was a long drive, but I was there.
I remember that. Yeah, absolutely. So these two teams, both, I would say, more offensive-oriented. Texas Tech, right? Runs more plays, offensive plays, than any other D1 program.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, Joey McGuire, who is the head coach at Texas Tech, he's kind of an interesting story, right? He was a big-time high school football coach in the state of Texas. He worked on Art Ryle's staff for a while at Baylor. That was a high-flying offense. And they do like to get after you offensively. They played three different quarterbacks this year. Tyler Shugg was their starter at the beginning, at the beginning of the season. Mm-hmm. He was the transfer from Oregon and played pretty well early, had a collarbone injury, missed 5 games in the middle of the season. He actually started their last 3 games, and Texas Tech finished the season on a 3-game winning streak, including a 51-48 kind of instant classic against Oklahoma. So he's going to be the guy. He's back from injury. The guy that was starting in the middle of the season is out for the bowl game. So it's Tyler Shugg's show for them offensively. When you compare the two teams, though, I mean, Texas Tech finishes the season on a strong note with some momentum with 3 straight wins. Ole Miss loses 4 of their last 5, which kind of brings into question motivation, right? I mean, Texas Tech fans are excited to be here. It's not that Lubbock is close to anything, but it is closer to Houston than Oxford is, much of Mississippi is. And so I expect a big Texas Tech contingent, a less big Ole Miss contingent in this ball game. But I think the month to kind of get over the end of the season, and especially the last 2 against Arkansas and Ole Miss, will serve the Rebels well. They've taken kind of a business-like, workman-like approach to getting ready for this game. Ole Miss has had no opt-outs. They've gotten some good news in recruiting in the transfer portal, and I think the Rebels are going to be ready to go tonight. And not to go like too heavy into the weeds in game plan or whatever. If you look at this Texas Tech defense, they are 89th nationally in rush defense. They're giving up about 167 yards a game. Ole Miss has the best running back duo in all of college football in the freshman All-American Quinshon Judkins and, of course, Zach Evans. who is a former five-star coming out of high school and is back in his hometown of Houston. So I would imagine that he would be excited for this opportunity tonight.
Perhaps no image has crossed my social media feed with more frequency than that of the photo of the Ole Miss helmet that is going to be worn tonight, which pays tribute to the late Coach Mike Leach. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I thought it was a nice touch. I mean, clearly there was not just a relationship, but a friendship between Lane Kiffin and Mike Leach, and it goes way back, right? It goes back to their time when they were both in the Pac-12. Lane Kiffin had a great deal of respect for Mike Leach, and I think that was a two-way street. And I do think it was a genuine friendship. They were both personalities that were a little bit different than kind of the status quo in the coaching world. And I think in some ways that kind of drew them to each other. Lane and Keith Carter and a couple of other folks, Monty Kiffin, Lane's dad, went to the memorial service in Starkville at Humphrey Coliseum last week to pay their respects, to kind of offer a tribute to him. And I think you're seeing that with several SEC teams. I don't know if they'll all do that for the bowl game, but it's that Mike sticker that's going to be on the back of the helmet, and the eye is replaced with the cowbell. So, yeah, I think a nice tribute from Ole Miss to recognize the former head coach of the in-state rival.
Yeah. All right. Do you have a prediction for tonight?
You know, just based on football alone, I think Ole Miss is a better team. I do think that Ole Miss's ground game poses some serious problems for Texas A&M from both a personnel standpoint and a scheme standpoint. Brian Haydad and I were talking about it either yesterday or last week on SportsTalk, and he said, you know, unless Zach Arnett shows up to coordinate Texas A&M's defense and he brings some of those defensive linemen and linebackers that Mississippi State had so much success with in the Egg Bowl, then it's kind of hard to see Texas Tech figuring out a way to slow this down. I mean, I think some of the basic stuff has to happen, right? Ole Miss has got to protect the football. I think they would like to at least somewhat control the clock by being able to run the game. You need Jackson Dart to be good. But so that's just from the football standpoint. And again, I mean, I think overall Ole Miss is a better football team than Texas Tech is. But you get into the motivation thing for a bowl game. Is one team more motivated? Is one team more excited to be there, more interested in being there? We've seen a lot of examples through the years, right? Florida didn't look like they cared about being in Las Vegas against Oregon State.
Wow.
Oregon State absolutely cared about playing the Florida Gators and just boat raced them.
And they did.
Nick Saban's Alabama teams have not had many games where they've laid an egg, but a couple of times they've done that have been in bowl games where they weren't in a playoff. And so what's the mindset? Lane Kiffin talks all the time about pro mindset. And if that is to be believed, then Ole Miss is prepared for this in kind of a professional, I used the term workmanlike way a second ago. Ole Miss shows up and they're ready to go. I don't think the crowd being in favor of Texas Tech matters. I mean, you play in raucous environments in the SEC all the time. Ole Miss got to show up and they got to play well. If they do those two things, I think Ole Miss fans will be happy when it's all said and done. If Ole Miss looks like they don't care, if they look like they don't invest it could be a long night for the Rebels.
Yeah, seems like that tone, how that tone gets set early on in the game may tell the story, you think?
Yeah, I think so. You'd like to jump out and have some success early. Ole Miss has been really, really good on opening drives of the game. And they had that stretch up until the last 2 or 3 games of the season where it was every single game. It was if you win the toss, you take the ball. If you lose the toss, the other team's going to defer, so you get the ball. And it was get the football, scripted plays right down the field, stick it in the end zone. Last couple of games, though, against Arkansas and against Mississippi State, didn't get in the end zone against Arkansas, had to kick a field goal against Mississippi State. I think the Rebels likely will get the football to start the game. That's kind of been the theme all season long, and would love to set the tone with a touchdown on that opening drive. But yeah, I mean, you got to play the whole game, but I think getting off to a fast start certainly would be big.
Before you go, just about out of time, this NIL stuff is incredible. We've got about 30 seconds. Is there something going on with Ole Miss and Delta Airlines?
So Delta is a corporate partner of Wheels Up. Wheels Up is private aviation, on-demand aviation. And Ole Miss announced a first-of-its-kind NIL deal with Wheels Up and the Grove Collective. There's some charitable stuff in there for, I think it's called Meals Unlimited, where some players are providing meals. And then there's also a Delta Airlines component that will allow some families to be able to fly in to both home games and road games.
Okay.
It's a brave new world out there, Gerard.
No doubt more to come on that for sure. All right. Well, Richard, good luck with the broadcast tonight, which you can hear right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Appreciate it. Good talking to you.
Absolutely.
See you. Happy New Year,
Thank you,
my
man.
friend.
Happy New Year.
You got it. Middays is coming right back. Stay